One of the surest pathways to disaster for an innovator is to do their work in isolation. So if you're just sitting in your office or sitting at home and you're thinking big thoughts and you're trying to understand better how to solve a problem, but you're doing it from your own imagination, you're doing it without understanding what are the specific lived experiences of the people who are going to benefit from your solution, then you're introducing bias into a system that's already risky. And this is your own bias. And we're biased in many ways because we only experience life from our perspective. And so as somebody who was born in the United States, I can never imagine what it must be like for someone who grew up in another country. I can try, I can read books, I can do all kinds of research, but it's still not going to give me the lived experience of someone who grew up in a different country. And so if I'm going to try to make a solution that's going to be usable or accessible for someone who comes from a different background than myself, then it's not good enough for me to just imagine what their experience might be. I have to be able to connect with those individuals and communities and form partnerships and collaborations with them in order to understand better how my solution can be used in practice. So whether you're trying to understand the problem that you want to solve or the solution that you've created, it's absolutely necessary to validate your assumptions and find ways of eliminating your bias by cooperating, collaborating, and connecting to the communities and stakeholders that are connected to the work that you're doing. And one of the ways I like to do this is through an activity called peer review. Now, I've borrowed this from the academic traditions where I, as a scientist, would write a paper manuscript, send it into a journal, and they would send it to other scientists who would take and review that paper and provide feedback and comments. And they may say, this paper is great, we would love to publish it. And they may say, this paper is not great, we do not want to publish it. And so when you're going into a peer review setting, it's very important to check your ego at the door. The peer reviewers are there to help you, and even to help you avoid failing, because they're the ones who can tell you, this will not work for my community. And they're also the ones that can tell you this could work really well if. So when you're collaborating and connecting with communities of practice, it's really important that you take that step back and you listen and you try to understand from their perspective what sort of things are valuable to them. What do they care about? So in the peer review activity, all you do is connect with someone who has a different perspective than you do on the problem or on the solution that you've created. And you can explain a little bit about the problem that you want to solve, or you can explain a little bit about the solution that you've developed. And you ask them to respond in two ways. First, by finishing the phrase, I like, and then explaining what it is they like about the problem or like about your solution. And the second is by filling in the phrase, I wish, and then explaining how they wish you would approach the problem or how they wish your solution could work. So two simple steps: find a trusted advisor who has a different perspective than your own, and then ask them to respond to two questions and ask them to reflect on two things. What do they like about your problem or solution? And what do they wish you could do with your problem or solution? This video is sponsored by Equals EU, Europe's regional partnership for gender equality in the digital age. Equals EU has received generous funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program.